Hey, welcome. If you're just starting your journey with Ruby, think of me as your mentor for the next few minutes. We're going to cut right through all the noise and focus on what really matters in your first month. Okay, let's get into it.
Okay, so when you first look at everything there is to learn in Ruby, you probably see something like this. It's a lot. You've got data types, object-oriented programming, gems, testing frameworks. It can seriously feel like you have to climb a mountain before you can even write one useful line of code.
And that's the million-dollar question, isn't it? Where in the world do you start? Well, the good news is you absolutely do not need to learn everything at once. In fact, let's just focus on 3 core skills that will get you writing real, working code and fast. First things first, you've got to learn to speak the language. This is all about the fundamentals, the absolute basic vocabulary and grammar that everything else, and I mean everything, is built on.
So the most basic vocabulary you're going to learn are data types. Just think of these as the nouns of your code. You'll use numbers to do some math, strings of text for things like a username, and lists to hold, say, all the items in a shopping cart. These are the ingredients you'll be using every single day.
Now, Ruby gives you 2 main ways to store lists of things, and picking the right one is super important. Think of it like this. For a music playlist, the order of the songs is everything, right? So you'd use an array. But for your phone's contact list, you don't care about the order, you just care about connecting a name to a phone number. That is a perfect job for a hash.
So here it is, your mission for week 1. We've broken it down into these small daily challenges to make it feel totally manageable. You'll start just by playing around with variables and data types, then you'll move into making decisions with conditionals, and you'll wrap up the week learning how to repeat actions with loops. This is how you build that crucial muscle memory.
And how do you practice all this? Let me introduce you to your new best friend, IRB, which stands for Interactive Ruby. Just open up your terminal, type IRB, and hit Enter. Boom, you're in a live Ruby session. You can type 2 plus 2, and it'll immediately tell you 4. You can create a variable and check its value right away. It is the perfect zero-pressure sandbox to experiment in and really build your confidence.
All right, so you can now speak some basic Ruby. You can make variables, you can make decisions. But that's kind of like knowing a bunch of words without knowing how to build a sentence, let alone a whole paragraph. Skill number 2 is all about organizing those words into powerful, reusable structures. We're going to learn how to use blueprints, which is what we call object-oriented programming.
The core idea here is the class and the object. A class is the blueprint. It defines the general concept of a car. It has wheels, an engine, a color. An object, on the other hand, is the actual car you build from that blueprint, like your specific Toyota, which is just one instance of that car class.
Now, our objects need to actually do stuff, and for that, we use methods. But here's where Ruby has a genuine superpower, something called blocks. Just look at that second example, 3.times. The times method knows it needs to do something 3 times, but it has no idea what to do. The block, that little bit in the curly braces, is like a package of instructions you literally hand to the method. In this case, we're handing it the instruction puts hello. So the method does its job, repeating, with the specific instructions we gave it, printing. This is what makes Ruby so incredibly flexible.
Your mission for week 2 is to become an architect. You'll start by writing your own methods, then you'll design your very first class, a blueprint for a dog. And finally, you'll get into inheritance, which is just a fancy way of saying a poodle is a specific kind of dog, so it gets all the normal dog features for free, without you having to write them again.
Okay, so you can speak the language and you can build the blueprints. The final core skill is learning to work like a professional, and that means you have to master your toolkit. See, writing the code is really only half the battle. Let's play out a little story. You're coding, you're in the zone, everything feels great. You run your program to calculate an average and then, bam, it just crashes. The whole thing stops and you're just staring at your screen wondering what on earth just went wrong.
Your terminal spits out this scary-looking wall of text. But listen, this is not a failure. This is a clue. It's your program telling you exactly what the problem is. It says undefined method plus for nil. In Ruby, nil basically means nothing, emptiness. Your code was expecting a number, but it got nil instead, and the program is yelling at you, hey, I can't add something to nothing.
So how do you find where that nil came from? You use a magical tool called a debugger.
You just add one little line to your code, binding.pry, right before the line that's crashing. When you run the program again, it'll pause right there. Your terminal suddenly becomes this interactive playground where you can type in the names of your variables and see what they hold. You'd quickly see, aha, this variable is nil when it shouldn't be. And just like that, you've found the culprit.
Debugging is just one tool, though. A professional uses a whole toolkit. You'll use a version manager so your project always runs on the exact right version of Ruby. You'll use Bundler to manage all the other code libraries your project needs. You'll use a linter like Rubocop to automatically catch little style mistakes, and you'll write automated tests to build a safety net, making sure new code doesn't accidentally grate old features.
And that gets to a really crucial point. A pro doesn't just write code that gets the job done. They write code that other people can read and understand and maintain. Tools like Rubocop help you build those good professional habits right from day one.
So, your final 2 weeks are all about bringing these tools into your workflow. In week 3, you'll get your environment set up just like a pro. And then in week 4, you're going to gain a developer superpower, writing an automated test. This is how you build software with confidence, knowing that your sum method works today and that it's going to keep working a year from now.
Okay, you've just spent a month building an incredibly solid foundation. So, how do we turn these 3 core skills into the start of a real career?
Picture this. You're in your first junior developer interview. They lean forward and ask you this. It's a classic because it tests if you really understand what makes Ruby, well, Ruby. How would you answer it? A really great answer has 3 parts, just like this. First, a dead simple definition. Second, a practical example using .each on an array is always the perfect one. And third, you explain why it matters. It's what makes Ruby so expressive and fun to write. An answer like this shows an interviewer that you didn't just memorize something, you actually get it.
Theory is great, but now it's time to combine all 3 skills. And the best way to do that is to build something. Here are 3 perfect first projects for you. A calculator will make sure you've nailed the language fundamentals. A file reader will force you to think about objects and methods. And building a tiny blog with a simple framework like Sinatra will make you use that entire professional toolkit we talked about.
And finally, and this is so important, don't learn in a vacuum. The Ruby community is famous for being incredibly friendly and welcoming. Go to a meetup, find a tiny open source project on GitHub, and make one small improvement. Join the conversations online. This is truly how you learn faster, network, and grow.
So that's it. That's the path. Learn the grammar, design the blueprints, and master the tools. You now have a concrete, step-by-step plan for your first month. You have the foundation, you have the plan, and a world of possibilities is waiting for you. The only question left is, what are you going to build first?